Users of Reddit, kids who were in foster care. What is your horror story? Story number 1. My family adopted 8 kids through the foster adoption system. We wound up with a family of 3, a family of 4, and one with no siblings. Along the way, we had about 200 children come and go through the house. There were all sorts of horrors. We had one girl who was around 17, whose dad was a professor and an alcoholic. He both molested her and broke her jaw with a punch. We had a small boy whose relative had tried to stab him. We had a family of 4 sisters for a long while who turned out to have been sexually molested very severely. They had to go to another home as we had other children, and it was no longer safe for those kids. We had a baby for 3 years who had RAD and was unable to form emotional bonds with other humans. All of the children we adopted permanently were born addicted to drugs and alcohol. 2 of the younger ones, twins, also had cerebral palsy and were never supposed to be able to walk or talk. Through years of occupational therapy, they are both ballerinas now, and, arguably, talk too much. So yeah, it's been an adventure. I could tell so many more stories. Story number 2. The only foster home I actually have memories of was amazing. I went to live with my mama, her name, at 10 months old. She was so kind and just had this aura around her that felt like home. I lived with her and her 3 children until midway through kindergarten. One afternoon when we got off the bus and were going inside to change into play clothing, my social worker was at the kitchen table. He told me to pack everything up. I was so bewildered, but I did as I was told. It was like a light had been shut off in my mama. When I came out with all my things packed, the social worker said that mama's adoption process had been stalled and he found me family to live with. He told me I would be much happier in a white family than with a black family. I was so confused. Mama was all I knew. She told me I would always be family and she would keep fighting to adopt me. I got in my social worker's car and he drove me to my paternal grandparents' home. I lived with them the rest of my childhood, but I spent every Sunday at Mama's. My grandparents weren't bad and my foster home wasn't bad, but being pulled out of a loving home that was all I knew was terrible. It was all because the social worker that had been assigned recently didn't think I belonged in a black family and he found bio family. Still talk to my mama often, and I'll always be thankful for her and who she is as a person. Her unapologetic take no shit but always kind attitude is who I strive to be. You couldn't shame her because she never did anything she'd be ashamed of. She's honestly the best person I've ever known. Seeing her at the table, devastated, still haunts me some nights when I lay in bed. Story number 3. My parents just recently got divorced and they were fighting really bad. My mom moved us back to Florida from Illinois and had us stay at our aunt's house for a month or 2. At the time there were 4 of us. I was 3 to 4 years old. My younger brother was around 2, my older sister and brother were no older than 11 or 12. Anyway, my mom went back to Illinois to finalize some things and get some belongings of ours. So we lived with our aunt. Within those first 2 weeks, from what my mom told us, after signing temporary power of attorney over to my aunt, she put us in foster care. I was in multiple homes, from what I can remember. I was so young, but some memories will never leave. One of the first homes was the worst one. If I didn't eat my food, I stayed the night at the kitchen table. One time I threw up and I got thrown into a room for a full day and wasn't allowed out. I remember crying under the door saying I was sorry. That same house had like 6 to 7 kids in it. I shared a room with 4 other children. From what I remember though, the children were very nice. The foster parents were terrible. Not only did they verbally abuse us, they fought each other. The husband and wife would essentially beat the shit out of each other in front of us. It was honestly the scariest shit I saw when I was that young. Then I got moved houses after some time. I can't remember them all, but I do remember temporarily being under the same household as my younger brother. We had a very, very nice woman and her older son, maybe husband. They were so nice. We called her Mrs. Kim. She bought us so many toys, took us to the park all the time. She was an angel. I remember her face still to this day. I hope she's doing well. Story number 4. I was a volunteer for our county social services department, simply helping out with office paperwork, as I was a computer software engineer at the time. One of the social workers approached me one day and told me that there was a boy that they were having difficulty placing because he simply didn't want to be a foster child and wanted to stay with his mother, who didn't want him, and asked the social services department to find him a home. I met the boy, and we seemed to hit it off from the get-go, and he agreed to become my foster son. He was 10 at the time. He was with me till he turned 16, at which time I adopted him with his mother's blessings. I put him through college, and he got a great job earning quite a bit more than I was. He continued to stay with me till he got married. I became grandpa to his great kids. His kids are adults now, with families of their own, making me a great grandpa. So now, in my old age, I briefly moved into a retirement home, but my son insisted that I move in with him. He told me that I took care of him all those years, and now it was his turn to take care of me. So I now live with him, and he's taking very good care of me. Story number 5. The worst 16 years of my life. Childhood was okay from what I remember. Until I started in my teens, things went south. The family was very abusive. The one thing that still sticks to me out of all the abuse was watching my little autistic sister get backhanded. The father, because she wouldn't stop crying. The mother threw a tin can at my face and cut it open and refused to take me to the ER, and instead super glued the cut and taped it, and it got severely infected, and I had to lie about what actually happened. Wasn't allowed to use the bathroom. Sometimes I wasn't allowed to leave my bedroom. They technically held me hostage until school. They told everyone about how terrible I was, and every time I tried to get help from school, they wouldn't do anything, even after showing proof the family denied everything, until I was moved to a different family's home while the mother went to Las Vegas for a vacation. I wasn't going back to the evil family that really wanted to destroy everything I had. And now I'm 21 and moving to France in a few weeks to get far away and hopefully start a new life. Story number 6. I grew up as the biological son among many foster children. My family always took in other boys around my age since I was 10, and even today, as I'm turning 19. Though we've had a few young kids and even a few severely challenged kids. I like to think we are the one decent family that never locks up food or forces communal baths or any of that crazy shit. Everyone has their own rooms, and like regular teen boys, they get nagged to clean them from my mom, but they never do LOL. We've had a few that have lived with us for years, and we will always consider them family, invite for Christmas and all that family stuff, especially one. Though many come through clearly angry at the world, and it makes it hard to make a meaningful connection or to not judge.